May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and Redeemer. Amen. Amen. Well, welcome to Trinity Sunday. I have no doubt that each and every one of you, if asked, could recite the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That is the easy part. If we had prayer books here in our pews today, I would ask you to turn to page 867. But since we don't have them, I want to show you how basic the concept of Trinity is to the church. On 867, we have the Articles of Religion. And the very first article deals with the Trinity. And it's a little too long for me to memorize it, so I'm going to read it to you. There is but one living and true God, everlasting, without body, parts, or passions, of infinite power, wisdom, and goodness, and preserver of all things, both visible and invisible. And in unity of this Godhead, there be three persons of one substance, power and eternity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This is the backbone of our church, the foundation upon which all is built. It has been to me a mystery. How? How does this happen? And I've tried for years to understand it, to get a good grasp on it. And I have not been successful to date, but I have done a lot of reading. One commentator explained why it is so difficult to understand a mystery. Attempts are vain to literalize or figure out the doctrine that began along the dusty, sun-baked roads of Palestine when some unsophisticated people encountered a man who utterly changed their lives. That's probably close to how it took place. Theologians for centuries have tried to explain this ministry. St. Augustine failed to explain it. He tried and he tried. And finally he came up with an analogy. A tree. The roots are wood, the trunk is wood, and the branches are wood. One substance, three different entities. Some people like it. Most theologians have complained that that's really not the way it is. St. Thomas Aquinas, the great theologian, who wrote the Summa Theologica, the summary of theology. He never finished it, but he got 5 volumes written. And in those 5 volumes, there were 38 treatises, 3,000 articles he relied on, and 10,000 questions. Did he succeed? There's a story about this. One day while celebrating Mass, as he was consecrating the elements, he caught a glimpse of the light of glory. His life changed, and he realized that all attempts to describe the reality of God fell short of the truth. He never finished the Summa Theologica, and he never wrote again. His failure was so profound And this morning, I am not going to try to explain to you the Trinity. It cannot be explained. And attempts to explain it have created pretty much nothing but heresy. And that's not a field I want to get into. So how did this concept of the Trinity come about? It had to have a beginning somewhere. The disciples were Jews. They grew up with the Jewish faith, and they knew the very first commandment. There is only one God. Moses came down from the mountain with these tablets, and the first one said, I am the Lord, thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods but me. That so permeated their soul, so that in reaching some sort of explanation, it had to be because there was just one God. One God. In the days following the crucifixion, the resurrection, the ascension, and Passover, the disciples must have spent some time trying to figure out what happened to us. What did we experience? They looked to their experience, seeking some understanding. They reflected on their life and times with Jesus, the post-resurrection appearances, and the appearance of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost. Their concept of God had to change. They had, through the teachings of Jesus, understood God as Abba, Father. Through the life and ministry of Jesus, they realized that God had been made manifest in Jesus. And through the gift of the Holy Spirit, their hearts were filled with love and power to carry on the work Jesus had given them to do. They came to realize that the God of the Old Testament was not sufficient to describe all that had happened to them. They had experienced God in ways that they had not believed were there. They experienced Him as the Creator, the Redeemer, and as the Sanctifier. But one God, three facets, all combined together since the beginning of time, and inseparable. I'm going to ask that you spend a little bit of time the next week looking at how you have realized God. How have you experienced God? I'm sure you have experienced God in many different ways. Some as God the Creator, some as God the Redeemer, and some as God the Sanctifier. It was the same God. You just realized Him and experienced Him in different ways. Different experiences, different ways. If you look at your own life and your experience with God, you will find the Trinity. It is there, and it is a mystery, and you have experienced it. You just have to recognize it. The second part, next to the last sentence. I don't want to skip that because that is very important. Go therefore and baptize all the nations. Go. That was a command from Jesus to the disciples. Go. And that command applies to us, right here, right now, whether you're here in this sanctuary or whether you're at home watching on television. We are told to go. Not sit, let other people do the work. We are called to go. Go out into the world. When Deacon Chester dismisses us today, as he does at the end of every service, the words of his dismissal contain the word go. Go. Go out into the world. He's not telling you not to come back, but to go. Go and do what God commanded the disciples to do and which he commanded us to do. Go out into the world and baptize all nations. Spread the word. Help bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. That's our job. Just one. Go. Amen.
Amen.